You replay it endlessly. In the shower, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. while the house sleeps around you. The perfect response crystallizes in your mind days too late. The exact words that would have dismantled them. The sentence that would have shifted everything. But in the moment, you didn't say it. You froze. Your emotions hijacked you. And because you reacted instead of responded, you lost. We're taught a comfortable lie. That arguments are about logic. That presenting facts clearly will make people understand. That reason prevails. This is perhaps the most dangerous misconception you can carry into conflict. Arguments have never been about truth. They're about dominance, about who controls the frame of reality. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, when others were still pretending humans operated on pure rationality. He recognized what we are beneath the civilized veneer, emotional, hierarchical creatures who don't respect whoever happens to be correct. We respect whoever maintains control. Watch what happens when most people enter conflict. They defend themselves desperately. They justify their actions with mounting panic. They scream or cry or plead. They surrender their power willingly, frantically, because being understood feels like survival. But you're not here to be understood. Understanding is a pleasant bonus, not the objective. You're here to be respected, to maintain your dignity, to refuse participation in someone else's chaos. What I'm offering you isn't communication advice. This isn't about resolving conflicts peacefully or seeing everyone's perspective. We're going into darker territory, the verbal techniques that don't just end arguments but sever the other person's ability to manipulate you emotionally. These are psychological circuit breakers. The seventh technique, especially, is so dismissive and final that it doesn't merely silence a conversation. It restructures the entire hierarchy of your relationship permanently. A warning before we continue. Once you internalize these methods, you'll experience social interactions differently. People stop being threats and become puzzles. You'll notice patterns instead of feeling overwhelmed by emotions. The heat that used to consume you during conflicts will be replaced by something colder, more calculated. And in that cold clarity, you'll discover a kind of power you didn't know existed. The first technique I call the benevolent spotlight. When someone attacks you verbally, they're almost always operating from hidden instability. Anger is a smokescreen. It covers fear, insecurity, loss of control. When they raise their voice, they're inviting you into the mud with them, hoping you'll validate their chaos by matching their energy. If you get angry back, you're telling them, yes, this situation warrants screaming. You become their dance partner in dysfunction. Machiavelli would tell you to never accept combat on terrain your enemy has chosen. So how do you respond? You shift the spotlight away from the content of their attack and onto their emotional state. When they launch a personal assault, when they raise their voice to humiliate you, you don't defend yourself. You don't address what they actually said. Instead, you look directly into their eyes, pause for 2 full seconds, and ask with genuine, soft concern, "Are you okay? You seem really upset right now." Watch the glitch occur. They were braced for resistance, for a fight. Instead, you've given them pity. By asking if they're okay, you've reframed the entire interaction. They're no longer the righteous accuser. They're the unstable one, the emotional child in the room, while you're composed adult showing concern. You're not under attack anymore. You're a doctor examining symptoms. This demolishes their momentum completely. They can't continue attacking because you've stepped out of the enemy role and into the caretaker role. If they push back with, "Of course I'm not okay. You did the specific thing," you simply nod, maintaining that calm, clinical gaze, and respond, "I hear you, but this level of anger doesn't seem to match the situation. Is something else going on?" This is ruthless because it's gaslighting deployed in self-defense. You're forcing them to examine their own reaction, making them self-conscious about their display. Consider the power dynamics at play here. Kings don't scream at peasants. Parents don't scream at toddlers. The person screaming is the person feeling powerless. By calmly pointing out their emotional state, you're holding up a mirror to their powerlessness. What they see, a red-faced, out-of-control version of themselves, will make them want to look away. They'll lower their voice because they have to. If they keep screaming after you've asked if they're okay, they're confirming your diagnosis. They're proving they're unstable. You win by refusing to play the game they initiated. The second technique is what I call the dead end. There's a specific personality type that thrives on argument for its own sake. The intellectual bully, the family member who brings up politics at every gathering specifically to watch people squirm. The colleague who plays devil's advocate, not to illuminate truth, but to feed on your discomfort. These people need your friction. They require you to push back because that resistance gives them energy and satisfaction. It's basic physics. Action requires reaction. If you engage with their content, if you bring up counterarguments or facts, if you show any sign they've gotten under your skin, you're giving them exactly what they want. Machiavelli taught that wise leaders never waste resources on battles that yield no strategic gain. Arguing with provocateurs is bankruptcy of your energy and attention, so you cut their fuel supply. When they finish their deliberately controversial statement, designed to bait you, you don't engage with the substance. You don't fact-check them. You don't act offended. You look at them with completely neutral expression, no smile, no frown, and you say flatly, "That's an interesting perspective." Then, and this is crucial, you immediately return to whatever you were doing. Take a sip of your drink. Glance at your phone. Turn to someone else in the group. You've acknowledged they spoke, but you've denied them any significance. The phrase, "That's an interesting perspective," is a verbal coffin. It communicates. I heard you, I processed it, I judged it, and I found it unworthy of further discussion. It's polite on the surface, but profoundly dismissive at its core. You're treating their passionate belief like a child's crayon drawing. That's nice, sweetie. They'll hate this response. They'll try to bait you again. So do you agree, or do you think I'm wrong? You rebuild the wall. I think it's a perspective, and you're entitled to it. You're stone. They can throw themselves against you repeatedly, but they'll only break their own bones. You remain unmoved, unreactive. This teaches people how to treat you. It teaches them you're not a source of supply, not a toy that makes satisfying noises when they press your buttons. Eventually, they'll stop pressing, not because they've changed their mind or respect your position, but because you're boring to them. And being boring to a narcissist or bully is the ultimate form of safety. The third technique is the analytical pause, weaponized silence. We're terrified of conversational gaps. In Western culture especially, silence feels like social death, like something's gone wrong. So when someone insults us or asks a trap question, our instinct screams at us to fill the void immediately. We blurt out whatever comes to mind. We stutter. We defend ourselves. We rush to close the gap because attention is unbearable. But power lives in the gap. Machiavelli understood that the prince who speaks less is feared more. When someone hits you with a rude comment, a demanding question, or a blatant lie, do absolutely nothing. Don't answer. Don't react. Look at them. Lock eyes. Count to 4 in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4. For seconds of silence during a heated interaction feels like an eternity. It creates a vacuum, and vacuums are psychologically intolerable. The other person's brain will start to panic. Did they hear me? Did I go too far? Why aren't they reacting? What are they thinking? In that expanding silence, you're seizing control of the frame. You're demonstrating that you're not reactive, that you're processing, judging, considering. After the silence, you don't even need a clever comeback. The silence was a comeback. But if you must speak, say something that puts the labor back on them. Could you repeat that? Say it slowly, calmly. Now they have to say the rude thing again, but the moment has passed. The heat is gone. Repeating an insult makes it sound worse, makes them feel foolish. They'll often stutter, rephrase it softer, or back down entirely. Suddenly they're explaining themselves to you. And remember this principle. He who explains loses. You've used time itself as a weapon. You've forced them to sit in the discomfort of their own aggression. Most people can't tolerate this. They'll fill the silence with an apology or retraction just to end the tension. Master the pause. It's the sound of authority. The fourth technique is the agreement trap, essentially verbal judo. In judo, you don't block your opponent's force. You pull them forward, so they fall from their own momentum. When someone attacks your character, they're expecting resistance. They're braced for you to defend yourself. You're lazy. You're selfish. You're completely incompetent. They're ready for you to say, "No, I'm not." So, don't. When someone attacks you with a subjective judgment, agree with them. You're being so difficult right now. You're right. I'm being difficult. You don't care about anyone but yourself. I can see why it feels that way. Don't say it sarcastically. Say it as a simple fact. What can they possibly do now? They have no next move. They swung the bat and hit nothing but air. By agreeing, you disarm the weapon completely. You strip the words of their power to hurt you. If you accept a label, that label can't be used to shame you anymore. But here's the Machiavellian twist. You're agreeing with the truth of the moment, not the truth of your soul. If they say you're arrogant and you respond, I can be arrogant sometimes, you're simply admitting to being human. You're taking the venom out of their bite. Then you pivot. You're right. I am being difficult about this because this matters to me. So how do we solve it? See what just happened? You accepted the insult, shrugged it off like dust on your shoulder, and pivoted back to the actual goal. You've demonstrated that your ego isn't fragile. You've shown your focus on outcomes, not emotions. This signals immense confidence. Only a truly secure person can admit a flaw without crumbling. It confuses the attacker. They wanted a fight. You gave them a negotiation. They wanted to hurt your feelings. You showed them you have no feelings to hurt, at least not ones they can access. You become a ghost. They cannot hit what they cannot touch. The fifth technique is the intent reveal. This one's designed specifically for manipulators, for the passive-aggressive types who cloak their insults in jokes or constructive criticism. They rely on plausible deniability. If you get upset, they retreat behind, I was just joking, or you're too sensitive. They operate in the shadows of ambiguous meaning. Your job is to drag them into harsh light. When someone makes a snide comment or tries to undermine you subtly, you stop the conversation. You don't let it slide past. You ask a question that cuts through the noise and targets their motivation directly. What is your goal with that comment? Or even more directly, are you trying to be helpful or are you trying to hurt me? This is a direct confrontation of their strategy. You're exposing the game board, making the invisible visible. If they retreat to, I was just joking, you stay serious. Explain the joke to me. I don't get it. Now they're forced to dissect their own malice. They have to explain why being cruel is funny. It's excruciating for them. They'll squirm, look for an exit, try to change subjects. By asking what is your goal, you're forcing them to admit their intent. If they claim, I'm trying to help, you respond. It doesn't feel like help. It feels like criticism. If you want to help, do it differently. You're setting boundaries in real time. You're teaching them that co-regression will not work on you because you will decode it, expose it, and reject it. Machiavelli said one must be a fox to recognize traps. This question is a fox. It sniffs out the trap and snaps it shut before your leg steps inside. It requires courage. It requires willingness to make the moment awkward. But remember, the awkwardness belongs to them, not you. They made the rude comment. You just turned the lights on. If the room looks ugly now, it's because of the mess they made. The sixth technique is disappointment. Anger is hot. Disappointment is cold. Anger implies the other person is your equal, an enemy worthy of battle. Disappointment implies they're beneath you, a subordinate who failed an assignment. This is a high-status maneuver that works best on people who seek your approval or people who pride themselves on being good, competent, or trustworthy. When someone lies to you, breaks a promise, or acts childishly, don't yell. Yelling shows they hurt you, that they got under your skin. Instead, look at them with a heavy, tired expression. Sigh just slightly and say, I'm surprised. I expected better from you. This cuts deeper than any scream. It targets shame directly. It implies they had a certain standing in your eyes, and they've just fallen from it. It positions you as the judge, the parent, the authority figure. I thought you were different. I didn't think you were the kind of person who would do this. You're using their own ego against them. They want to be seen as good, as capable, as honest. You're telling them you're failing at being the person you pretend to be. Then you withdraw. You walk away. You leave them with that heavy sentence hanging in the air like smoke. They'll chase you. They'll try to fix it. They'll try to prove to you that they are better, that you were right about them initially. You flip the dynamic entirely. Instead of you chasing them for an apology, they're chasing you for validation, for restoration of your good opinion. This is the art of soft power. You don't force someone to change. You make them want to change to regain your respect. But use this sparingly. It's a heavy weapon. It damages bonds. Only deploy it when the bond is already fractured by their disrespect. Now we arrive at the seventh and final technique, the nuclear option. There are some arguments that cannot be won. There are some people who are committed to misunderstanding you. They're chaos agents, narcissists, energy vampires. They want the fight itself. The fight is their fuel. As long as you're talking, as long as you're engaged, they're winning because they're consuming your time and your peace. The ultimate Machiavellian move is recognizing that your attention is the most valuable currency on earth, and you can choose to stop spending it. When you realize a conversation is circular, when you realize they're not listening but performing, you deploy the nuclear option. You stop, you gather your things. You look them in the eye, completely devoid of emotion, not angry, just finished. And you say, you can believe whatever you want. I don't care enough to argue with you about this. Then you leave. Or even shorter, you're right. Pause. I'm done. This is the ultimate rejection. You're not saying, I give up. You're saying you're not worth the effort. You're telling them that their existence, their opinion, their anger is not significant enough to warrant a response from you. You're devaluing them to zero. For a person who seeks attention or dominance, this is psychological death. They'll scream at your back. They'll try desperately to provoke you to turn around. Oh, so you're running away? Keep walking. You can't handle the truth. Keep walking. Your silence as you walk away is the loudest noise they'll ever hear from you. This establishes that you control access to you. You're the gatekeeper of your own peace. When someone disrespects the sanctuary of your inner calm, they're evicted. This creates a vacuum they cannot fill. They're left alone with their anger, which has nowhere to go but back inside themselves. They poison themselves while you remain free. Machiavelli wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved." In this context, fear means respected. It means they know you have lines. They know you have self-control. They know you cannot be bullied, baited, or broken. They know that if they push too hard, you won't scream or beg or defend. You'll simply vanish. And that is a power that money cannot buy, that no external validation can give you. Listen carefully. These 7 responses are tools, but a tool is useless in a trembling hand. The words themselves don't matter if your energy is frantic, if your voice shakes, if your eyes dart around nervously. The delivery is 90% of the impact. You must cultivate what I call the outlier state. Low heart rate, deep breathing, still eyes, relaxed shoulders. When the chaos starts around you, when voices rise and accusations fly, you slow down. They speed up, you slow down. They raise the volume, you lower yours. This contrast is what makes these techniques devastating. It's the contrast between a storm and a mountain. The storm howls and rages. The mountain remains. Be the mountain. Most people go through life as leaves in a wind, blown around by the emotions of others. A boss yells, they crumble. A partner argues, they panic. They're puppets, controlled by invisible strings attached to their insecurities and fears. Cut the strings. When you use these techniques, you're taking scissors and cutting the strings that the world uses to jerk you around. It will feel uncomfortable at first. Your old self wants to defend, to be nice, to explain yourself, to make sure everyone understands your position. Let the old self die. The new you, the architect of your own reality, doesn't explain unless explanation serves a strategic purpose. The new you observes. The new you decides. The new you speaks once with precision, and then lets the silence do the heavy lifting. There's a paradox here, a strange truth that reveals itself only through practice. The more willing you are to end a conversation, the more control you have over it, the less you care about winning. The more often you will win, the more you embrace the darkness of silence, the discomfort of being misunderstood, the more peace you will find in your daily life. This is forbidden knowledge in a sense, because society wants you compliant and reactive. Reactive people buy things to feel better. Reactive people vote out of fear. Reactive people are easy to predict, easy to manipulate, easy to rule. Don't be reactive. Be strategic. Step out of the noise. Step into the cold where calculation lives. That's where your power waits for you.